Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt, and this is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit, your beacon of freedom and the American way of life. Tune in every Friday for a new episode as we dive into the world of liberty and what makes our country great. All right, guys, welcome back. This is another episode of Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit. I hope everybody has had a wonderful week. I'm Eric, and I've got Matt here with me.
Hello.
And, man, it has been a crazy year so far, and we've been a little bit behind on podcasts, so I do apologize for the lack of frequency, but I promise we are trying to get in here and knock these out as much as possible for you guys. Matt, you've been pretty busy with the Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
Yeah, man. I mean, I know we haven't really been talking about it that much. We opened back in October, and we've just been kind of growing the school, and we're in full swing now. If you guys are curious, it's Alliance Jiu-Jitsu in Roswell, Georgia. Come train with us, world class. We're 13-time world champions. We're the current world champions. We won the Triple Crown last year or this year, which means we won Worlds, we won No-Gi Worlds, and we won Master Worlds. So we're the first affiliation to win all three in 1 year. So
you have some slots for new students available?
Yeah, yes, we do. We have plenty of slots for new students, world-class jiu-jitsu, and come on down and give us a try.
Right here in Roswell, Georgia.
Roswell, Georgia, Atlanta, bjjroswell.com.
Awesome. I'll have to come up there and visit you guys. I
Yeah,
want to see
dude.
what it's all about.
I know we talked about it before, man. You didn't know what it was about. We're going to get you in there. And it's starting to become...
my butt kicked.
Well, it's starting to become very popular. It was kind of like a little grappling secret. And now you have a lot of YouTube guys. I know Glover just put his little short out getting tossed around in jiu-jitsu. Tim Kennedy, big guy at MMA, jiu-jitsu, Jocko. So all those guys are doing jiu-jitsu. We took it a step further. We opened a school.
So jiu-jitsu is definitely an art form that involves grappling.
It is the premier grappling art. Yes.
Well, I'm not bad at grappling, so
yeah,
I
man,
think
we'll
it'd be fun to play around with it. So today it's actually a perfect way to segue into.
Yes.
Today we're going to be talking about the infantryman's mindset. And this video this podcast rather may not exactly be about what you think it's about. That we're going to talk about some soldiering skills, of course, but I think it's important for people to realize that anyone can adopt infantryman's mindset. And infantry is a very unique job. It is a combat arms MOS in the military. MOS means military occupational specialty for those of you that don't know what that means, but it is a job that involves direct combat with the enemy, and you are, the ground forces. So we're just going to start out I'm going to go to Wikipedia and just literally read the definition of what infantry is right off of Wikipedia, just to give you an idea for those of you that may not understand what it is. Infantry is a military specialization which engages in ground combat on foot. Infantry generally consists of light infantry, mountain infantry, motorized infantry, mechanized infantry, airborne infantry, air assault infantry, and marine infantry. That's a lot of infantries. In English, use of the term infantry began about the 1570s, describing soldiers who march and fight on foot. The word derives from Middle French infantry, from older Italian. So basically, they're talking about how the word came to be, but that gives you the basic concept of what infantry is. Ground soldiers, guys that fight on foot. But the thing about infantry, and I guess it's important to mention in this podcast that Matt and I were both in the same infantry platoon.
That's right.
We served in Iraq together in a mortar platoon, 05, 06, which was interesting.
Yeah, back in the infancy of OIF. I mean, we used to hear guys come back, I was in OIF 9 and OIF 10. I'm like, dang, it's still it's still going, because we were over there OIF 2 or OIF 3. Yeah. It was a different world back then, man.
It was, when you look at rules of engagement and things like that, the ROE sort of molded and shifted as a result of things that the first 2 or 3 years worth of dudes did. And look, I'm not going to say that there wasn't some terrible things that happened in that war and some things that shouldn't have happened in that war, But war is a scary situation, and it's full of uncertainty, and it's full of fog. and mental anguish and physical anguish and death and pain and suffering. But there are, believe it or not, some moments of brevity as well in those situations where you find the humor in things. Like you realize that, no matter what color we are, we're black, we're white, we're Christian, we're Muslim, we're whatever stage in life, we're rich, we're poor, we're fat, we're skinny, no matter who we are, we all are in the same situation and we have to deal with the same problems together and come out of it shining on the other side and most importantly, alive on the other side. And when you put yourself in the mindset of just survival, to just simply live and survive to the next day, it really does change your outlook on life for the rest of your life. And that's the mindset I want to discuss, is the disciplines that it instills in you, the mindset that it instills in you. And I think that's an important thing to discuss.
It is very important because it does change you, especially when you go into a combat situation like that and you've been there for a while. Those behaviors are ingrained in you and they're kind of burned into your brain and your memory. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to combat or you have to be in that situation to practice these behaviors. They can be learned. We just happen to be, forged in fire. That's why we remember it. But if you want to have that mindset, then you can still do it. It's not like, anything specific to combat. Like,
right.
You can,
other than just the experience of how hellish, a situation can be.
This is true. Outside of that, just like those simple behaviors, like always having that situational awareness. I'll tell you a big one. And I didn't even realize that I did this until Lisa, my wife, like we were dating and at the time. And we were going to a friend's house and I would ring the doorbell, but then I would step to the side. Like I would never stand in the doorway. Like even while I was waiting for them to answer the door, I would stand off to the side. And she would look at me one day and finally she's like, why do you always do that? Why do you always like step to the side of the door? I'm like, we all know why. It's because I don't want to be in the fatal funnel. I don't want to stand in front of the door. But subconsciously, I didn't realize I was doing it. I'm just like, I'm just going to move over here just in case. And this was well past when we came back from Iraq. This is like 10 years after that. But think about, I've been doing that the entire time. That was just the first time that she had said something to me because she was curious. Like that's a very odd behavior because I met her after I left the military. So she didn't get to experience all the goodness that comes with like a deployment. So this came afterwards.
And honestly, it's probably a good thing.
Yes.
In the huge scheme of things, because it is hard on families, when soldiers are deployed and you're separated, it sucks, especially when you're married, you got kids, and we dealt with that.
So that's one thing that I have a new respect for. When we were younger, we had a lot of guys that were with us that had wives and kids, and you never think about how hard that is until you have kids. And I'm like, that is very, very tough, man. Like to have a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old and you go on deployment for like a year and a half, because it was never just 1 year.
Or worse, a newborn.
Yes, like I think we were deployed for like a year and a half.
Imagine mom having to be home with a newborn for a whole year.
But then that kid, like the pain that father feels or that mother feels being away from the kid, like you can experience that now as you get older, and you're like, that's tough, man.
Yeah.
But that makes you a stronger person. I'm not saying that everybody should experience that, but imagine now, 10 years later, like how much more wherewithal that person has for having weathered that.
Sometimes a little anguish can harden you.
Yeah, it's true.
And you go forward in life and you carry that anguish with you, and it really makes the little things just roll off your back. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you're just like, whatever.
But
I've slept in the mud. I've slept with 2 inches of snow on me. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
That's
right?
exactly what
Gone
we're talking about.
6 days without eating. I mean, come on.
The infantryman's mindset, like just having that wherewithal. And I'll tell you another thing, like, Lisa will always say that I used to say is like, it's not a bad day because nobody died. Like, it doesn't matter how bad the day is. There's never been a day as bad as like waking up and hearing like 4 of your buddies got blown up, or like you went on an op and like something went wrong,
Yeah.
This is just a regular day. in life, nothing happened.
Yeah. And it's weird how it will help you garner that perspective. And soldiering in general, any person can be taught how to be a soldier, how to perform certain duties, how to be given a job and a task and everything. But I think when I think infantry mindset, I think camaraderie, I think teamwork, I think common problem solving skills, right? Sometimes a simple solution is the best solution. You have to kind of think on your feet. You actually have to be pretty smart to be an infantryman. Like, everybody associates infantry as dumb people. They couldn't get any other job, so they got infantry. That's not necessarily true. I mean, you have to know a lot of math, to handle all the whiz wheels and do all of the calculations for a mortar, and everything like that, ballistic tables and things like that. There is a good bit involved, with mortars, and you get into artillery units and things, they have to know a lot. I mean, yeah, you have a ballistic computer, but if that computer goes down, you got to break out the whiz wheel and figure it out,
Well, they did require a higher, infantry in general. It might have required a lower overall ASVAB score. However, you did require a higher GT score. So GT being general technical, like, you had to have that critical thinking ability. And that part of the test was like, well, how do you deal with this problem, like, expediently, quickly? You don't have 30 minutes to figure this out. It's like, how do you solve this problem? Like, hit it with a hammer. Like, and if it doesn't work, hit it again.
Hit it harder.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes you just have to break out a bigger tool to accomplish the job. And, infantry, I've always described it as, it's a job where you're homeless, you're a bum with a gun. Okay?
Yep.
Like, there's going to be times where you sleep in holes, you sleep in trenches. Well, we didn't have trenches, but in many wars and situations like what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, they're sleeping in trenches with a foot of water in the bottom. It's like, imagine how much that hardens a person. Where, I mean, what in life could possibly come your way in the future that you're going to be like, my feet have been in a foot of water for months. I haven't had dry feet. Like, there's certain terrible situations we go through in life that just harden us so much and nullify us so much, like make us feel numb, that we're just like, you know what? Hey, if I survive this, I can survive freaking anything. And I think that that's an important mindset to have. And you don't have to be in the infantry. You don't have to be a soldier. You don't have to be in the military to adopt the mindset of a person who has gone so far to the edge that, you know what, hey, if we survive this, we can freaking survive anything. And I think that the teamwork aspect's important. What I learned from it is the importance of your team, the people to your left and right that you have to rely on, that ultimately could be the people that mean the difference between life and death. And imagine, all right, you think that at work that your communication with your coworkers is important. Oh, I forgot to send this email to so-and-so about such and such. Or it took me a few days to get back to this person, and I waited a little bit too long, and now our project's behind a little bit because I dropped the ball on a certain task or whatever. And, we have the luxury of going, well, life's going to be okay if this project takes a few extra days, a week, a few weeks, or whatever. But you don't have the luxury in a war or in a terrible situation. You need the immediate communication and feedback of the people to your left and right, because if they drop the ball, it could cost them their life and or you or all of you. So you have a certain respect for communication and purveying those facts over to each other. And I think that's an incredibly important mindset to have, is to understand the importance of communication and teamwork. Teamwork's an incredibly important aspect of it.
I will say I agree with you. With one caveat is, outside of the military, you definitely want to communicate regularly. While being in the military, it might not be the best experience on learning how to communicate, because the way that you communicate and that you learn by watching your leadership, and the leadership, when they communicate with you, in the Army, at least in my experience, is very short, very concise, very violent, with brevity. Meaning, they will use 3 words to correct you, and it's not always nice, and it's very quick, and sometimes soldiers will take that out when they get out of the military. They'll utilize that same type of communication, whether it's with family or friends, because that's what they're used to. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of reel that back and say, hey, maybe I should not be as because being in the military is a very condescending environment.
Yeah.
Everything is like talked down to you because it's a rank structure. So you can't take that same mentality into your workplace or into your family, because people don't like to be talked to in a condescending manner.
You don't want to treat the people you care about like property.
Right.
And like subordinates.
But this is the way the military is by nature of it being a rank system. So if you can get past that, if you can release that part of your experience when you rejoin the civilian world, that's going to serve you well.
Yeah.
Now that's one benefit of learning the mindset of an infantryman and not experiencing, is you get to skip that whole deprogramming portion of being condescending and being an a-hole and that whole part.
Sometimes being direct is good, though, and in a combat situation or even a training environment, right? I mean, think about it. A lot of accidents happen in training. Recruits are killed all the time in training. I mean, training's dangerous, right? And the thing is that training brings out mistakes. You want mistakes to occur in training because that's what allows you to realize what your deficiencies are and go, okay, we need to fix this area, right? I remember we were training in Germany and there was a blue on blue incident. Okay. We were shooting blanks. Of course it's training, but do you take that to heart and go, oh my gosh, I just fragged my own dude? Well, yeah, that's serious, right? But if we made that mistake in training, maybe we won't make that mistake in combat when it actually matters. So whereby it sucks to have a blue on blue incident or an injury or something, I'd rather have a minor injury, a sprained ankle, or a blue on blue incident with blanks or worse, blue guns, at close range is not fun. But I'd rather have that little issue in training and then know that when the real time comes that, hey, we've already been through this and maybe we're going to correct that deficiency. Maybe we need, more training on situational awareness, thought-making, decision-making processes and things like that. So that's what that training is meant to do, is to harden you. And in that training process, yes, mistakes are made. There is an inherent danger in that sort of thing. And I suppose the same could be said for, let's just say in the civilian world with firearms training. Firearms are, dangerous tools that if used improperly can hurt you, just like a hammer or a saw or a car, a truck or a motorcycle or whatever, or a boat. I mean, there's lots of ways to get hurt, right? And everyone wants to exclusively pin guns as this dangerous item that are just exclusive to injury, exclusive to violence. But they never want to discuss the merits of these items. Now, I don't want to get off on that tangent, but it's just important to remember that, the rifle is the tool of the infantryman. That's his ultimate craft, is using his rifle and closing in to destroy the enemy where they stand and to do it by whatever means necessary. And to adapt to the battlefield situation as it unfolds in front of them, and that's why the infantry is called the Queen of Battle, right? That's totally, if you don't understand what that means, it comes from chess. And in chess, the queen can move any direction for any amount of spaces that she wants. She's the most versatile piece on the entire chessboard. So when they say the infantryman is the queen of battle, which is odd because infantry are usually males, but this point still stands. If infantry is the queen of battle, it means that they should be able to go any direction for any amount of time to any end result on the battlefield that they need to do. So that's what they infer with that.
Yep. So, I don't like talking about it that much, but I had a blue on blue incident when I was in Iraq as well with real guns. And it's embarrassing. It happens, but nobody's perfect. And this was out at the safe house when we had the 240 and I was pulling security on the Date Grove out there.
I remember.
And it's like we had the range fan set up. It was like perfect, like looking right at it. And next thing you got tracers coming at us, and I lay into it, and then it stops. And the next thing you know, I think it was like Sergeant Mack or something was downstairs, and he's like, hey, ceasefire, that's Charlie Company.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, Charlie Company happens to be right in my range, like right in my AO, in my range fan, popping off, tracer rounds.
We had claymores out there.
Yes, this is how idiotic this is. This is like
there were claymores out there.
And this is how communication comes into key. Like, they did not communicate with us that they were in our AO. They did not communicate with us that they were within our range fan. And they're just popping off rounds. I'm like, all right. I thought this was like a wet dream, man. I'm like, this is like all in my range. And I got 250 rounds on this belt. I'm like, we're going to town, baby. And then I was like, and then I heard.
Luckily, nobody got hurt.
Yeah. And thank God. But
I'm sure it was scary for them.
Dude, I'm like all shook up right now just talking about it. That could have ended very badly, but it's just like one of those communication things. Like, they're operating in the wrong AO, and you just never know, man.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. And,
that's
the chaos and fog of war. And those are the types of experiences that an average person is probably never going to find themselves in.
Yeah.
And, combat MOSs do constitute an extremely small amount of the total military forces that are out there. I think you were saying like maybe less than a few percent of all forces.
I believe the going statistic is 1% of the military is in infantry. So you have in the entirety of, like, say, the army, only 1% of the army is infantry, and then everything else is the supporting cast. However, you do have other combat MOSs. You have like artillery, you have the combat engineers, you have tankers, scouts,
which
Cav
I guess
scouts, like the 19
they're usually
Deltas.
attached to infantry platoons, of course.
You have like your FOs and stuff like that. But again, that makes up a very small portion of the overall military.
It's important to just kind of recognize that, when you look at the structure of an infantry unit, and then you look at just the structure of the military and all the support that is required to keep an infantry unit running, okay? If you think about it, like, the entire military is there to support, ultimately, the guy on the ground that has to go in and get the guy in the hole. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like it's a trickle-down effect. Yeah, the Air Force can go in and drop a bunch of bombs and blow a place to hell or whatever. A bunch of reconnaissance guys can sit on a hill with a glid and call in a specific airstrike to like one building, and we think we blew them up. But at the end of the day, you don't know until a dude with a gun walks over there and gets within 10 feet and sees that the target's been eliminated. And that's what infantry is: the eyes on the ground, the boots on the ground that physically goes in and sorts out this mess. And the whole military essentially supports that effort, right? You've got to eat, you got to have fuel, you got to fix vehicles, you got to have your clothing cleaned. I mean, like, it's all these things. You got to take showers, you got to take a dump, you got to sleep somewhere. There's all these logistics that go into keeping you alive, right? And I think that's an important mindset to have too, to realize that logistics win wars. I mean, like, if you look at any military blunder that is not directly related to combat, a lot of blunders can be chalked up to poor logistics, bad weather, right? Poor communications, right? Terrain. All of these things are important. And over time, again, that infantry mindset starts to come into play, right? What do you do now, right? After you've been in the military a while, or even if you just want to adopt the infantryman's mindset, you think about complacency. Hey, I'm not going to sit in the restaurant with my back to the door. That's a common thing, right? And that's not even necessarily the infantryman's mindset. That's just a mindset of someone who's like, hey, I don't want to have my back to the door.
Situational awareness.
Awareness,
yep.
Right? What do we consider when we're traveling, right? What route we take, right? Is the weather going to be good? Is it going to be bad? I mean, everyone does that. Hey, we're about to take a road trip. Well, we could leave Wednesday while it's pissing rain, or we could just wait till Thursday when the rain stops and leave Thursday. Well, we probably want to, have the nicer weather if we can if we can deal with it, right? So we're always assessing these things, right? Hey, if it's raining outside, we grab our umbrella or rain gear or muck boots. Like, we prepare for that situation, right? So that's really, that's what it comes down to. It's just that mindset is one of looking to the future and understanding what's about to happen and preparing for that eventuality to the best of our abilities and communicating those eventualities to the people around us so that they can come out on the right side of the situation as well. It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah. And to stack on top of that simplicity, if I was going to compare, being in the infantry on a combat deployment to any other job, it's by far the easiest and most simplest job I've ever had. So, and outside of being on like 4-day missions where you leave and you're gone for 4 days and you come back. Okay, so let's strip away all of the
suck.
Yeah, let's strip this away and we'll go into it. So, okay, yeah, 4 days, no shower, limited food because you're, running, patrols, or you're running convoys, or you're on, security, traffic control points, doing your little, traffic stops, you're stealing people's cars and stuff. It happens.
Walking through minefields.
Yes. So strip that away. Strip away the fact that, you're gone for 4 days, you come back and you get like 24 hours to like decompress and then you're back at it. All right. When you do come back. Yeah. When you do come back, you don't have to worry about your laundry. You get to go drop your laundry off. Right. And this is all coming from lower enlisted officers and like, upper enlisted, like, first sergeants and platoon sergeants. They have to run meetings and do all that stuff. I wasn't privy to that. I was lower enlisted.
And they probably have people help them out with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like I had the shield, the sham shield. I got to, we all got to kind of just fly under the radar, but drop off your laundry. They do the laundry for you. You're hungry. You're hungs. Go get you some food. All right. Yeah. When you are back at camp, you have a bed. You get a shower. And then guess what? You just hang out and relax until they say, all right, wheels up at, 1300 tomorrow. And that's what? You're no accountability. You go do your PMCS on your truck, on your Humvee.
Clean weapons.
If it's broke, go take it over to the mechanics. Tell them what's wrong with it. Those dudes are awesome. They'll fix whatever you like. Hey, man, I need this vehicle back by 1300 tomorrow. They're like, great. Come back in like an hour.
Go over to the little internet lounge, send an email, go to the gym, work out, go over to the chow hall, have a meal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever you want. You could be 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm hungry. Well, go to the chow hall.
Dude, I cannot tell you, having like competent mechanics was awesome. Like your truck would be having issues. You run over, like you drive it over there. Like, hey.
Yeah, my stick is on the road at 1 tomorrow. Yep. They're on it.
They'll fix it. You'll see like 4 dudes in there pulling stuff apart, like replacing parts. Like, I give a lot of credit to those guys. Like the mechanics kept us going. But just to put it like, it was very easy. It was very cut and dry. It was like, hey, this is the mission. You complete the mission. Get all the stuff you need to get done. Go pick up your mail. Amazing. How does something go from the U.S. to Camp Stryker in Iraq? Like a desert freaking
Imagine
base.
the logistics required to get that letter to you.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it is. And also another consideration in those types of environments and in that situation as well is that when you look at all of that, people today, like there are a lot of veterans that come out of the other side of combat and their military service, and a lot of them have like a lot of extreme views, like, oh, well, civilians shouldn't own guns, and, they want socialized everything, socialized medicine, and you always notice that comes out of D.C., like the D.C. environment, like the people in Virginia, like they all are more blue, more leftist, more socialist, more progressive, Democrat kind of vibe that you get out of them. And I just want to say that I think that while I think that's the wrong mindset to have, of course, that's my opinion. I mean, I'm extremely, conservative, right-leaning, type of guy. I'm really more centralist than I am right. But the point is, though, is that in all of that, they come out of that environment liking that socialized environment. Like, you get sick, you just you don't have to pay anything. You go and get looked at the clinic. You know, you go over to sick call and you get taken care of. You're hungry, you have a meal. Your clothes are wore out, you get clothes. You're out of ammo, you get ammo. I mean, like everything you need is taken care of. And when you're in that environment for 25 years or 20 years or however long, you know, a long military career, and you get so conditioned to having everything provided for you, I can see why it would be tempting for people to come out of that environment and go, well, I'm actually a socialist and didn't realize I am because I like getting everything for free on the taxpayer's dime. And it becomes this hierarchy of, well, I'm actually above the civilian. That's how they feel. They think that they're above the civilian. They think that they deserve more than civilian. They think that the taxpayers should front all of their needs and that society should just take care of it because they are on this higher plane of existence. And I think there's a stark contrast in the difference between that mindset and the mindset of a person that can take that situation and go, wow, this was a bad situation. And hey, while like there's a war going on and we're over here in this combat zone, well, of course things have to be taken care of, but like I'm not going to expect society when I get home to, you know, offer me the exact same luxuries just in my everyday life because I experienced that treatment in the military. And I think there's just a disconnect there in the difference in the mindsets, you know. And the same goes for firearms ownership. There's a lot of people that come out of the military environment and they think, well, civilians shouldn't have guns, and they end up being anti-gun, even though, you know, maybe many of them even served in combat MOSs and found themselves on the wrong side of a gun in many situations and then use firearms to protect themselves in combat, you know. And you would think, like Matt and I came back from a situation, we go, well, wow, guns are pretty dang important, right? Like, you know, I couldn't imagine going somewhere over there without having my freaking rifle.
Right.
You take that rifle to the latrine, you take the rifle to the shower, it don't matter where you're going, you're going to have that rifle. That rifle is your companion.
Absolutely, dude. Like I remember when we first came back, you felt naked without it. You would wake up freaking out.
I still keep a rifle in my truck.
Dude.
I carry a rifle everywhere I go. I'm not going anywhere without a rifle.
Those first couple months when you come back and you wake up with cold sweats and you're like, I lost my rifle. Like, I cannot find my rifle. You know, like, you just like the dread. And
that sucker
and realize,
is your wife.
Yes.
Like, it is your companion. And I just cannot imagine how someone could come out of that environment and not go home and go, wow, like, you know, firearms, good thing to have laying around. Like, you know, it's useful, right? Like, how could someone be anti-gun after coming out of a military environment where you just use guns for an entire year and a half deployment or year-long deployment to defend yourself against people trying to kill you? How could you be that way? It's just, I don't understand the mindset. It's just doesn't ring in any form of logic with me.
Well, and I say use with air quotes because lots of those guys are the
Pogues.
Yes, they were upper echelon. They had PSDs. You know, they got the photo op with the rifle, but their rifle was always clean. Their uniforms, no dirt on it. Our uniforms like blood and ripped and all nasty. But you are absolutely right. The military is a socialized enigma because while it does provide, you know, protection and jobs, it's a socialist environment. Like everything is provided to you.
Yeah, but it's a socialist environment that comes out of logistics and necessity.
It is. However,
that's why everyone's got a job, so that everyone is working towards a common goal. Like the idea of a socialist environment, if you consider the military to be a socialist environment, which it really is.
Yes, it is.
Right? The reason it works, though, is because everyone is working towards a common goal. Hey, our goal was to win the war. Well, obviously the mechanic's going to fix my vehicle. The cook's going to feed me. The medic is going to fix me if I'm hurt, like, et cetera, because I'm putting my butt on the line to go out there and get shot at so they don't have to get shot at. So it's like we're all working towards a common goal.
So here's the way.
The reason it doesn't work in society is because people don't give a crap about each other's goals. Well, it just becomes about mooching off of people and not necessarily because we actually want to accomplish something as a cohesive unit. And that's the difference in the mindset.
I would say that as well as it works in the military because there's a rank structure. So there's a hierarchy. The reason that socialism doesn't work, and it never will work outside of something with a hierarchy and rank structure, which socialism is designed to negate. It's supposed to be everybody is equal, right? Everybody is on the same level. So you can't technically have that with a rank structure. It's not supposed to work. So the reason that the reason that you mentioned those guys out in Virginia and DC, they're like, oh, you're a civilian. That's exactly why it doesn't work, because they look at it like they're better than you. There's always going to be...
They're your ruler.
There has to be, in a socialist and even, I say, communist environment, it's not supposed to be a point where you have those that are above, like oligarchs. But it always happens. There's always people that are above you, that look down on you, that have more than you. And that's what causes everything to unravel.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to get on that tangent in this particular podcast, but I think it's important to mention that, there are a lot of people that come out of the other side of a military environment that have that mindset. And I personally have never been able to understand it or make any sense of it or rationalize it in any way. I'm just the kind of guy that, I grew up in the South. I grew up, in the outdoors, hunting, fishing. I grew up with guns my whole life. So for me, firearms were just a natural part of existing in the South as a young man. And, the military, obviously, you get to play with some cool guns. And, maybe when you're young, maybe that's all you think about. Like, hey, I'm going to go see some adventure. I'm going to go do something crazy and, go do this. And you may not necessarily think about the, let's just say, geopolitical ramifications or the moral or logical ramifications. I mean, like when you're 19, 20 years old, look, later in life, you look back and you go, wow, we did some dumb things when we were young. And, volunteering to go take part in a war, it's probably a pretty crazy decision for some. Maybe later in life they look at it. But I tend to look at it like, hey, it was what we all felt was the right thing to do at the time. It was what was all in our hearts at the time. And you know what? I learned something from it, right? I learned teamwork. I learned camaraderie. I learned, some good survival techniques. I learned how to kind of harden up and realize that, look, life isn't fair. You're not always going to be comfortable. You're not always going to be secure. You're not always going to feel secure. Sometimes you're going to be in danger. Sometimes you might have to kill somebody that's trying to hurt you. And, overall, you kind of receive that as sort of a baptism, if you will. It's like, well, you know what? My life hasn't been too difficult up till now, but now, boy, things are feeling pretty difficult. And you get a little bit of a wake-up call to what reality really is. And I think that experience can be a positive thing for some if they receive it in the correct way and take it as a teaching. I know earlier we were discussing that the infantry mindset is almost like akin to Bushido.
Yes.
Like, when we look at the marketing campaigns for recruiters back in the 2000s, right, the be all you can be and the warrior culture, the warrior ethos, and all the way that they would discuss the idea of being a warrior very much in a way that, like knighthood or Bushido or the Spartans, like the warrior culture, the culture of fighting people, but also the spiritual and moral implications of what it means to be a warrior. Like, to have the courage not to kill is almost as important as having the courage to kill. And that discretion, you know what I mean? It's an art form, and when you think about Bushido, it's the same concept. The samurai, they were very, very methodical in the way they trained themselves. They enjoyed art and music and good female company. They enjoyed, good conversation, poetry. They sang, they wrote poetry. I mean, so the whole warrior concept to them was that a warrior should be someone who's capable. When you look at both sides of the brain, right, you have a male component of the brain and a female component of the brain. And I think a good warrior really should be able to embrace both sides of their mental capacities in their brain. You got to be able to do both. It can't just be all rah, rah, rah all the time, because that can lead you to the temptation of doing something irrational, whereby the female side, you can't just always react emotionally either. You have to have both sides working in unison with each other to provide an outcome that is going to be, logical, but also, well thought out, well considered, and weigh every single idea behind the decision you're going to make. And I think that culture comes along with it, and you develop that over time, the skill to do that.
So if we're talking infantryman's mindset, we're looking at, key characteristics.
Yeah.
We could say, one of the most important is I would consider grit or tenacity. Just the ability to, like you said earlier, let things roll off your back.
Embrace the suck.
And knowing that you have to continue. There's no choice. You can make the best of it. All right. So let's just say, for example, you're on a 12-mile road march, and conversely, if you take that into the civilian world and you have to escape, like here in Atlanta, we had the snowpocalypse, right? A couple of years ago, where people got stuck on the road. They literally had to get out of their car and they were walking 5 or 6 miles home.
Some people froze to death.
They did, yes. But this is where it comes in, the mindset. You don't have a choice. You stay in your car, you're going to freeze to death. Or do you get out to the best of your ability, make it home? One has 100% chance of death. The other, you can make it. You just have to.
It's gonna suck.
It's gonna suck very
but you're
bad.
Gonna make it.
Yes. So having that mindset of you have to do it. There's no other choice.
That's it.
And
to suck it up and deal with it. So grit and tenacity, I would say another characteristic of the infantryman's mindset, and I think this is important: punctuality and accountability.
Yes. Huge.
Personal accountability, punctuality. One thing that I can say that after serving in the military that I really took the civilian world, I'm very funny about being on time. If I make an appointment with someone, I'm going to be there 20 minutes early because I'm going to factor in getting stopped by the train, or I'm going to factor in getting pulled over by the cops. I'm going to factor in every eventuality so that I can ensure that if the appointment is to be late and not on time, it's not because of me.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the bottom line. Punctuality is super important. Everything works on a time schedule in the military. Time is of the essence.
Yep. And if you miss movement, you're done. If they say, hey, we're pulling out at this time, we're not waiting for you. This is just the way it is. We cannot stop this.
And you're going to be in a ton of trouble.
Yeah, that too. But you're not going to delay the entire mission because, we're just going to leave you. We'll pick you up on when we come back.
Another tenet would be accountability. I mean, again, we talked about personal accountability, but the military has many ways of holding you accountable. Believe me, if you're not personally accountable, they will ensure that you are accountable. You'll get Article 15. You'll get slapped with all kinds of crap, extra duty. If you screw up, they're going to hold you accountable 110%.
Dude, I've been hazed so many times. It's ridiculous. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know if they still do it now, but back then
blood rank.
It was just hazing, meaning you're late for formation. You get smoked for 2 hours. You're that type of hazing. Yes, it is holding you accountable. I'll tell you what, it does work because nobody wants to be smoked after hours.
No.
Multiple times.
Lose that rifle one time and watch what happens.
Oh God. Yeah. No. So I mean, and so we have grit, tenacity, punctuality, accountability. Situational awareness obviously is a huge one.
Yeah.
Understanding, your surroundings, looking around, making sure that, you're in a safe space, and almost like you're preparing for the worst, but more than likely it's not going to happen, but understanding what those outcomes could be.
With the situational awareness, again, I'd go back to that whole restaurant idea. Hey, you don't want to have your back to the door at a restaurant. That's simple situational awareness in play right there. All right, what if you're on the road driving or whatever, and you can make a decision. Hey, you're on a 4-lane road or something. Well, maybe I'll have the situational awareness to realize that there's a lot of traffic in these few lanes I've noticed the last few miles. Well, maybe I'll just switch to a lane that has less traffic. What if someone blows a tire? I don't want them swerving over and hitting me. Or what if I need to escape the road quickly and get off on the shoulder? Or what if I need to escape the highway quickly? So I think about that. I'm always close to the exit lane in case I need to make a quick exit. So again, those little tiny, minuscule things may not matter, but they add up in totality to where it's like, wow, like you're actually pretty well prepared, you know? I'll admit that before I was ever in the military, I never carried a med kit in my car or road flares and car repair stuff and tools. You know, I was never always well prepared, you know. But over time, you realize, like, you know, hey, it's kind of a nice thing to have laying around. That's just general preparedness. You know, that's seeing the path in front of you. And what that situational awareness teaches you to do is to understand the path that lies before you. To not live just in the moment that you're in right then. You need to live in the next, you know, day or 2 days or week or even plan months in advance. And you'll find that as you plan these things out and have a better view of the path in front of you, you'll be more prepared and it'll actually lower your stress level considerably. Look, stress is a killer. And you'll stress yourself out a lot less by not procrastinating and waiting to the last minute to make plans. When you view the road ahead in its totality and look as far as you can, you'll be able to prepare for what's coming a lot better. And I think that is a skill that the infantry instills in you quite well.
Yeah, so there's two that come to mind for me. And these are probably up there with being like top tier. One is being reliable, and not reliable in a sense that I can, you know, rely on you to always be there when I need you. That's a different type of reliable. Reliable meaning if you're given an objective or given instructions, that you're going to follow those instructions and be where you need to be at a certain time. So if they said, hey, so-and-so, we need you at this point at 1:00, they don't have to micromanage you. They understand that you're going to be there at that time when they tell you to be there. Yeah. And it's not like I'm telling you to be there because I want you to be there. I'm telling you to be there because the team depends on you to be there on time. So being reliable and just doing what you say you're going to do. And this goes to if you say, hey, so-and-so, I'll do that. I'll pick this up for you, or I'll make sure this gets done. You're not just going to blow it off.
Hey, I went to the chow hall. I'm already over at the laundry point. Well, I can just pick his laundry up too.
Yes, dude.
You look out for each other.
Huge.
Or something like, hey, you know, this stick leaves at 1300. That doesn't mean at 1300 I'm showing up with my pants down, scratching my butt, starting to load the gear. That means that headspace and timing on that 50 cal's ready to go. It means the newest codes for the radios is programmed and ready to go. And we've already done commo checks. We've already done our basic checks on our vehicles, checked our air pressure and our oil and all our bull crap, make sure the air filter's clean. All that crap is done.
Yep.
And that vehicle is turned on, running, full of fuel, and ready to roll at 1300. And to know that the people you're left and right, that you don't have to go, well, hey, did you fuel up the vehicle? Did you do this? Did you do that? It's just known that it's a well-oiled machine and that this machine's ready to go.
And that goes back to being like having that camaraderie, because in those instances, usually everybody's hanging out together. So like the drivers, all 4 or 5 drivers would be getting ready at the same time, even though they didn't have to be. Everybody could decide to do their own thing and wait till the last minute.
And you know how much time it takes. After a while, you kind of go, hey, it's about time we get rolling. And we all kind of get up and do our thing.
Yeah. And then everybody's kind of hanging out. You're mounting your guns together. You're checking your fluids, all that stuff.
Yeah, and if you get done, you help everybody else.
Yes,
you know?
and that brings back memories, man, because it's like everybody's one big team or family, because you're all helping each other. You're like, oh man, I need this, and you go and steal it from somebody else. Like this, you steal it together. Like you're like, hey, you go down to the motor pool and acquire something.
Oh man, let me tell you. Well, okay, here's another tenet of the infantryman's mindset: resourcefulness.
Yes,
resourceful. How to be resourceful. It will teach you to acquire things as you need them, and to overlook the the moral ramifications of taking something that doesn't belong to you, because, well, in that environment, everything belongs to everybody.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter.
That door doesn't belong to you. That belongs to the army. And I need that door, and I'm putting it on.
And I need it more than you, so I'm just going to take it.
I have somewhere to go, so I need this. And trust me, guys, happens all the time. Those doors come right off. They're just sitting on hinges.
I think infantrymen also tend to value good relationships with each other a lot more than maybe some of the other areas of the military. And one great example is our platoon sergeant. Okay, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to blast him out or anything like that, but you know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And so I was his gunner. So, of course, like, I have to hear it all, and if he complains about other soldiers in the platoon, I have to hear it. It's like I hear everything because I'm near the top. Like, he's the boss. So it's like if you work directly under the boss, you're going to hear all the bull crap about all the other people in the company. Like if you're in the civilian world, same thing in the military, you're going to hear an earful. But sometimes riding with the boss is a good thing because he's the kind of guy that we'll think about it. The boss knows the boss at the chow hall, right? The platoon sergeant that handles the chow hall. So of course he's going to be able to go in there and let's just say carefully acquire anything that we might need for our stick that day. So, of course, we always had a cooler full of Red Bull and Gatorade and all kind of good drinks and plenty of water. And, of course, he would always get the good meals for us, the Jimmy Deans.
Yeah.
Instead of the MREs, we had fresh Jimmy Deans that had, like, fresh-made sandwiches and chips. And believe me, when you're out on a stick, there's nothing more refreshing than a fresh sandwich over that damn MRE.
Yep.
So, relationships, understanding the importance of keeping your friends close and understanding, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And that's another form of that resourcefulness. Like, you help each other and use each other's resources in ways that, you scratch your buddy's back, he scratches yours. It teaches you to understand the logistics of brohood, right? What do we do with the Italians?
Yes. Yeah.
What do we do with the Italians?
Yeah, we would trade with them.
Yes, we did. What did we trade with the Italians?
Well, I guess it's past the statute of limitations.
It's past the statute. Just say what it was.
We would trade uniforms for wine and liquor.
Yep.
Yes. We would, like, uniforms, patches, whatever. Like, they had liquor and wine because I don't know how they did it. We didn't. We wanted it. We got it.
Look, it's simple brotherhood. That's another tenet of it. Brotherhood. Because, I don't speak Italian. They speak enough English to communicate with us because, the Italians are probably a hell of a lot smarter than we are. The Japanese soldiers we ran into could speak English. Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with us? Like, we don't speak other languages. We're rednecks, but we take care of each other.
I did feel bad
for
them,
You always take care of each other.
The Japanese soldiers in those like Black Fox vehicles, like for some reason they kept their vehicles painted black in the middle of the desert. I had to feel bad for them.
That had to be a hot box.
That shit was hot.
Yeah. But they had AC in those things, which back in 05 was, not very many of our Humvees had AC.
None of them. I think one of them had AC and it didn't work.
It wasn't as common in 05 as it was later. But the point is, though, is that you look out for each other. And there's this universal brotherhood that applies to it. I could talk to a soldier from Japan. I could talk to a soldier from Italy. I could talk to a soldier from Bulgaria. Anywhere.
We'd
and
switch
any
guns.
of them I ran into, you could all relate somehow to each other, even if you didn't speak the same language, just because you were all in the same environment together and all dealing with the same bullcrap together. And that, in of itself, is a tenet of infantry mindset.
Yeah, you'd switch guns with them. You're like, oh, hey, let me see yours. I'll let you see mine. You're like sitting there like, oh, this is kind of weird. Give me
the Japanese always had some weird rifles. And I noticed, too, that the Japanese were very reserved.
That's
they
just
never
part
really
of their culture.
wanted to talk that much. And if hey, can I check out your rifle? Oh, no, we can't do that. It's like they're just so regimented, and I respect that about them. I respect the fact that they're very disciplined people. Mm-hmm. They always had well-kept uniforms, really clean vehicles, clean rifles, and they were always very professional to a fault. Mm-hmm. Almost to a fault.
I forget which country it was. It was on gate duty. It wasn't a specific country that would always be on the outer gates. So like the U.S. would be on the inner gates, But then the outer gate, going like the last gate to get out, it was always another country, but I forgot what it was. I want to say it was like a European country. I can't remember.
Was it the Czechs?
It might have been. Their uniforms were like, it almost looked like a first generation like multicam. It was like light brown, green.
I don't recall.
Yeah,
it feels like
been
a
while,
lifetime
man.
ago.
But
Yeah.
I just remember it was like a European country.
Well, I'm glad that in this podcast, we were able to reminisce a little bit about some of our experiences, and maybe this will provide some context to what we're trying to accomplish in today's podcast to discuss the infantryman's mindset.
I got one more.
You don't have to be in the military. Of course, we're going to go more, but I just want to kind of cap that to say that you don't have to be in the military to still be of a great mindset that can take you a lot more places than you might think.
Yep.
So what's another tenet?
I agree. Well,
and I'm sure there's ones that we're missing.
We're missing,
here.
but these are the ones that stick out to me as to like what makes a good mindset, even like in the military especially. But if you take these characteristics and practice them outside of the military, it's going to serve you the same.
I agree.
And the last one that I have is just being the best, meaning it's almost like a culture of not rivalry, but you always want to be the best at whatever it is that you're doing. And it's almost like it's ingrained in you. So if you're, so for example, like, yes, we were in a mortar platoon, but we weren't necessarily doing mortar. Like the way the infantry is set up is you have like 11 Bravos and 11 Charlies. The only difference being during basic training, when the 11 Bravos go to do Bradley training, we go and do mortar training for it's like 2 weeks, and then we come back together, and then everything is the same. You still go to the same ranges and all that.
We
stuff.
train on the 113s; they train on Bradleys.
Correct. So when we go overseas,
in a mechanized unit,
mechanized, yes. So
that's another bag of tricks we'll talk about later.
in that sense, you're still held to the same standards as an infantry standard. So you have infantry, like range table tests, you have to go qualify with the machine guns, and then on top of that you have to qualify with the mortars. So now within that unit, you want to be the best at whatever it is that you're doing. If you are a gunner, you want to be the best gunner, and you're doing everything you can to be the best at that job, and you want your team to be the best. If you are an RTO, you want to understand, you go down this rabbit hole of like, what's the best way to do this radios, the ANCDSs, the codes, like everything. And that is a skill that a lot of people just don't have right now. And hopefully if you can get in the right mindset, it's just always wanting to be the best. Whatever it is that you do, apply yourself 100%.
I want to mention as well that when it comes to that, be the best version of yourself you can be too. And I will say this, and look, I'm man enough to admit this, that when I was in the military, I was not always the best when it came to physical fitness. Like, I struggled with running. I was never the best runner, And look, to be fair, everyone has strong points and weak points, right? Like, some people may not be very good runners or good at push-ups and sit-ups. I could always do a lot of push-ups. I could always do a decent amount of sit-ups, but I always struggle with the run. Sometimes I fail a PT test. It happens, right? But those things that we identify allow us to go, hey, how can we make the best version of ourselves that we could be? If I could go back in time, I probably would have started lifting a lot younger in life. I only recently started lifting within the last few months. I'm almost 40 years old, and I haven't gotten into lifting until much later in life. And so to piggyback on what Matt said, be the best version of yourself that you can be. You know what I mean? Be as strong as you can be as capable as you can be as physically fit as you can be. And that's one area that I think I might have struggled a little bit with. But to be fair, not making excuses, and that's another thing, don't make excuses. You don't make excuses. You come up with results. But the point is that not to make excuses, but when you're young, sometimes a motivational factor can be a little difficult to work out for some of us. We don't know what we want to do in life yet. We don't know the path that we want to take sometimes. We don't always know what we're really capable of until we push to that point, And to be fair, when you're young, you get a little bit of you get a tiny amount of ability to kind of make some mistakes, okay? And then it takes maybe some adulthood and a little bit of life experience to realize, like, wow, this is where I want to be in life. And I see that goal now and I'm going to achieve it, I'm getting in a lot better shape. I would say that right now I'm probably in better shape than I was when I was 20 in terms of my muscle mass and just physical, the way I feel, my physique and everything like that. So it's okay to be a late bloomer. Look, it's okay to be a late bloomer. It's all right. So that's important. Be the best version of yourself that you can be, and I think that's a very astute observation. There's probably things that we're leaving out in this podcast. This podcast could be an hour and a half if we wanted it to be, but we'll probably keep it at around an hour. That's typically what our show, length is. Are there some tenets of the infantry mindset that we forgot to mention, or are there some things that you would add? Have you been in the military? We'd love to hear from some of your experiences. Go down in the comment section below here if you're watching here on YouTube and leave us some comments, and maybe we will do a revisit of this particular video / podcast, and we'll go over some of your tenets. Everyone takes from military service what they take from military service. The reason that Matt and I have such a similar mindset is because we're in the same unit.
That's right.
At the same time. Right? Around the same people, sharing the same experiences. So our mindsets are going to be pretty similar. I'd like to know what your mindset is. Have you had a negative experience? Did some of those negative experiences help you in some way and make you stronger and make you better as a result? I think I know the answer to the question, but it's just interesting to see what people take from it. But again, I want to reiterate, you don't have to be in the military to have the mindset of a warrior, of a fighter, to have the mindset of someone who refuses to die. Be the Keith Richards of humans, right? Be the cockroach of humans if you have to, if it means refusing to die, refusing to be defeated. And, you develop that mindset, and I think in time, you sort of wind up just kind of like not letting anything bother you anymore.
Everything is rolled off your back.
Stoicism.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be a tenet. Sometimes you just got to be stoic and just understand that there are things out of your control. And sometimes will be forced to react to a situation rather than go, hey, I'm controlling this situation. If I'm going to the park and having a picnic with my family, well, I'm going to grab my basket and blanket and all my food, and I'm going to roll the blanket out, and I'm controlling the situation. Like, as long as the weather's good, we're having a picnic. Like, I know that. That doesn't require stoicism. But sometimes in life, you have to realize that there are situations that are out of your control.
Yep,
and
agreed.
You have to react to the situation instead. Wow. This has been a great This is such a great podcast to break the ice after being off for a while.
Yeah, man. We've been super busy. I think this was probably one of the easiest ways for us to get back into it.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And I think it's very relevant to what's going on right now.
Yeah. A lot of people are looking to figure out how they can get into a better mindset, especially with what's going on now. And, what I will say is after 20 years of being in a war with two different nations, there's never been a point in time where you've had more military veterans that are no longer in the military. Because imagine we got out, 12 years ago almost? So, I mean, probably longer than that. I didn't even count. But how many of guys like us are out there that came up through the years, It's
been more like 18 years, bud.
Yeah, holy cow. I'm old.
Dude, it feels like a lifetime. For me, it was almost a lifetime ago. Because it's like literally half my life ago.
Yep.
It's just weird to think about it in those terms. Time can get away from you. It really can. But
you look back and think like we were doing when we were 18 or 19 sitting in another country versus what you see like now you see 18, 19-year-old kids on TikTok and you're like, it's a little bit of a different upbringing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast. And if you're watching here on YouTube, thank you as well. We do post these podcasts in video form over on YouTube if you want to check them out. These also get posted to our Rumble page. Follow us on Rumble at IRACVeteran8888. Also, IRACVeteran8888 on YouTube. And if you're listening here on the podcast, leave us a good rating. That helps us show up in the search results. And we appreciate the downloads. We appreciate your support. And also, absolutely, if you are in the area here in Georgia, make sure you check out his jiu-jitsu academy. What's that website one more time?
AllianceBJJRoswell.com.
Awesome.
Yep. Come try us out.
I think we need to come up there and shoot a video and
let's do it.
Show off the school a little bit. That'd be fun.
Man. It looks great. It's really
yeah,
cool.
man. Dude, and plus, again, all right, because I know you and I know how you are, and because we've known each other so long, I know it's legit. I don't even have to see it. If he says it's legit, again, it goes back to that reliability thing. Like, I know he's a reliable person. Like, if he tells me it's legit, that's legit. I know.
Yeah,
110%.
man.
So, and that comes from that mutual, when you're around people enough and you know you can rely on them, when someone tells you something, you're like, hey, I can take this for face value. I don't have to wonder if this is speculation. So that's an important aspect of it too. But I could go on all day, but thank you guys so much for listening here today. I hope you all enjoyed it. Have yourselves a wonderful week. We try to post podcasts as often as we can. Again, let us know in the comment section below if you're on YouTube here. What are some of the tenets of infantry mindset that we might have forgot about? And maybe we will revisit this and share some of your stories in a future podcast. But thank you so very much for tuning in and for watching here today. Many more on the way, and we will see you soon. And check out that Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Get yourself in training.
That's right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Life, Liberty, and Pursuit. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. You can support us over on Ballistic Inc. by picking yourself up some merch. And remember, guys, danger is freedom. Have a good one.